Now, I want you to think about something real quick. What if I told you that every single bag of fertilizer you've ever hauled home from the garden center, every jug of liquid plant food, every little packet of blue crystals you've stirred into a watering can, all of it, every cent you spent, was mostly unnecessary? And what if the thing that actually grows bigger, healthier, better tasting vegetables costs you nothing? Not close to nothing. Nothing. I know how that sounds. I thought the same thing when I first heard it. But stick with me here, because by the end of this, you're going to look at your garden in a completely different way. What's actually feeding your plants? It's not what you think. All right, so let's start right at the beginning, because this is the part that nobody ever told me, and honestly, I'm a little sore about it. For years, decades even, I walked into that garden center, grabbed whatever bag had the biggest numbers on the front, nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium, them 3 numbers, and I figured I was doing right by my plants. Felt responsible. Felt like a serious gardener. And here's the thing. It worked. Kind of. The plants would green up, push some new growth, look pretty good for a few weeks, and then they'd sort of stall. And I'd go buy more fertilizer, and they'd green up again, and stall again, and I just kept riding that merry-go-round, year after year, spending money every single season, never once asking why my soil never seemed to actually improve. Never got richer, never got easier to work with. Just stayed the same tired, pale, dusty stuff it always was. What nobody ever sat me down and explained is this. Your plant doesn't eat fertilizer. Not really, not directly. What your plant actually eats, it gets from the soil. And the soil, a healthy one anyway, is alive. I mean really, truly teeming with life. There are bacteria down in your garden bed right now, billions of them in a single handful of good dirt, breaking down organic matter into forms the plant roots can actually take up and use. There are fungal threads, fine as spider silk, weaving themselves through the soil and plugging directly into the roots of your plants, passing them water and minerals from places the roots themselves could never reach. There are nematodes and protozoa and little critters you'd need a microscope to see, and every single one of them is part of this system that has been feeding plants since long before any of us showed up with a bag of granules and a watering can. Out in the forest, nobody fertilizes a thing. Nobody ever has. And them trees grow tall as a house and live for hundreds of years on soil that's never once seen the inside of a garden center. The leaves fall. The bugs and the bacteria break them down. The fungi pass the nutrients along, and the whole thing just feeds itself, season after season, for free. So, what does the store-bought fertilizer actually do? Well, it skips all of that. It just dumps a concentrated shot of chemical salts into the soil, and the plant slurps them up quick. Fast green up, sure. But it doesn't feed one single microbe. Doesn't build 1 inch of better soil. Doesn't strengthen a thing. It's a shortcut that charges you money to go nowhere. The fertilizer treadmill, and how Michael got stuck on it. Now, I want to tell you about Michael. Michael's been gardening since about 1980, give or take, and for most of them years, he did exactly what the bag told him to do. Sprinkle it on, water it in, come back in a month, and do it again. 3, sometimes 4 bags a season on his vegetable beds alone. Add in the liquid feed for the tomatoes, the special rose fertilizer his wife asked for, the stuff for the containers on the porch. And by the end of summer, Michael had spent close to $200. Every year, without fail. And the frustrating part, the part that really got under his skin, was that the garden never seemed to get any better from one year to the next. It didn't get worse, exactly, but it sure didn't improve. The soil was still thin and pale, still cracked in dry spells, still needed the same amount of fertilizer the next season just to get the same results. That right there is what I call the fertilizer treadmill. And once you're on it, you don't even notice you're running, because the second you slow down, everything just stops. The plants go yellow, the growth stalls, and you figure, well, obviously I need more fertilizer. So you go buy more. Here's the honest truth about what's happening. Synthetic fertilizer, the chemical kind, it actually suppresses your soil biology over time. Them concentrated salts, they're hard on the microbes. Kills some of them off. And a soil with fewer microbes is a weaker soil. A hungrier soil. A soil that can't hold moisture properly, can't cycle nutrients on its own, can't do a single thing without you showing up with another bag. The fertilizer creates the very dependency it claims to fix. Which, now that I say it out loud, is a pretty good business model if you're the one selling the fertilizer. Michael, bless him, he figured this out eventually. Not from a bag, from his soil. What's actually in your soil? Right now. Let me paint you a picture of what a truly healthy patch of soil looks like underground, because it is something else. Picture a city. A whole busy, complicated, living city right beneath your feet. You got the earthworms as your heavy equipment, tunneling deep, sometimes 2 feet down, opening up channels for air and water to move through. Every tunnel a worm makes is a little irrigation line your plant roots can follow. And worm castings, the stuff they leave behind as they move through the soil, that is some of the richest, most plant-available nutrition you will ever find anywhere. Richer than anything in a bag with a pretty label on it. Now, threaded through all of that, finer than any hair on your head, you got the fungal networks. Mycorrhizal fungi, if you want the fancy name. And here's what they do that just about knocked me sideways when I learned it. These fungal threads connect to the roots of your plants and actually extend the reach of that root system by 10, 20, sometimes 100 times. Your tomato plant, on its own, can only pull water and nutrients from the soil right around its roots. But with a healthy fungal network plugged in, it's drawing from a huge area. Like going from a drinking straw to a fire hose, except the fire hose is underground and invisible and costs you absolutely nothing to install. Then you got your bacteria, and there are more species of bacteria in a healthy teaspoon of garden soil than there are people on this earth. Some of them fix nitrogen right out of the air and hand it to the plant roots. Some of them break down organic matter into plant food. Some of them fight off disease-causing organisms just by being there and crowding them out. The whole thing together, the worms, the fungi, the bacteria, all of them working together, that is your real fertilizer. That has always been your real fertilizer. And every time you pour a bag of synthetic granules onto the soil, you're feeding the plant and starving the city underneath. Eventually, the city shuts down, and then you wonder why the soil never improves. The $0 microbe mix, what it is, and where to get it. So here's the part where I tell you what we're actually making, and you might laugh a little, because it is almost embarrassingly simple. We're going to brew up a living liquid. A tea, basically, except not the kind you'd want to drink over ice on a hot afternoon. Trust me on that one. We're going to take finished compost, the good dark crumbly stuff full of billions of microbes, and we're going to brew those microbes up in a bucket of water until we've got a liquid absolutely teeming with living biology. Then we pour that right onto the soil around our plants and let that underground city start rebuilding itself. The whole thing costs nothing if you've got a compost pile going. And if you don't, well, that's the first thing we're going to fix. Now, the compost is the heart of this whole operation, so let's talk about where to get it. If you've got a pile out back, what you want is the finished stuff from the bottom. The dark, crumbly, sweet-smelling material that looks like rich, dark earth and smells like the forest floor after a good rain. That smell matters. If it smells sour, or like ammonia, or just kind of off and unpleasant, it ain't ready. Leave it longer. Good compost smells like good dirt, and that's the only test you really need. Now, how do you make it for free? Everything your kitchen throws away. Vegetable peelings, coffee grounds in the filter, eggshells, fruit scraps, the tops of your strawberries. You go out to the yard and you add your grass clippings, your pulled weeds before they go to seed, and in the fall, every leaf that comes down off them trees. You pile it up somewhere out of the way, keep it damp but not soaking wet. Give it a turn now and again, and in about a year you've got a pile of the richest, most biologically active material you can put in a garden. Cost you exactly nothing, not a cent. Now, if you're brand new to this, and you don't have a pile going yet, or you need some right now today, go get yourself a bag of worm castings from the garden center. It'll run you a few dollars. And a single bag of good worm castings will brew you batches all season long, so it still works out to nearly nothing on a per-use basis. Worm castings are loaded with the good microbes, even more concentrated than finished compost in some cases, and your plants will not complain one bit about the substitution. How to brew it up, step by step. All right, here we go. And I want you to notice how few things are on this list, because people always expect it to be more complicated than it is. You need a 5-gallon bucket. You need your compost or worm castings. You need an aquarium air pump with an air stone on the end of the hose, the kind you'd buy for a goldfish tank. Costs about $10 or $12 at most. And you buy it once, and it runs for years. You need a mesh bag. An old pillowcase works just fine, or one of them paint strainer bags from the hardware store. Perfect for this. You need unsulfured molasses, just plain molasses, the kind that's been sitting in your baking cupboard since about 2011 and you forgot it was there. And you need water without chlorine in it. That last one is important, so let me explain it before we go any further. If you're on city water and you fill that bucket straight from the tap, that water has got chlorine in it. And chlorine's whole job in life is to kill microbes. It does not distinguish between the bad ones in your drinking water and the good ones we're trying to brew up. It'll wipe out your whole batch before it even gets started. So, what you do is fill your bucket the evening before and leave it sitting out overnight with no lid. The chlorine off-gases into the air all on its own. By morning, it's gone and the water's ready. Better yet, if you've got a rain barrel, just use rainwater. Rainwater is already perfect. No chlorine, nothing added, soft as can be. Rain is basically the original garden water, and it hasn't changed its recipe in a long time. Now, some towns use something called chloramine instead of regular chlorine, and that stuff doesn't off-gas as easy. If you suspect that's what your water company uses, a little bottle of dechlorinator, same kind the aquarium folks use, fixes it in about 30 seconds and costs next to nothing. Okay, water's ready. Now take your mesh bag, scoop in 2 or 3 good handfuls of finished compost or worm castings, tie it off at the top like a big overstuffed tea bag, and drop it right down into the bucket. Add 1 tablespoon of molasses, maybe 2 if the bucket's good and full. That molasses is the food. It's what kicks the microbes into high gear and gets them multiplying like crazy. And before you go thinking more is better and reaching for the jar, I will warn you right now. Too much molasses feeds them so fast they use up all the oxygen and the whole brew turns sour and rotten on you. 1 tablespoon, 2 at the most. A good confident glug if you measure by feel. That's plenty. Now drop your air stone down to the bottom of the bucket and plug in the pump. You want that thing bubbling like a hot tub the whole time it's brewing. That oxygen is everything. The good microbes, the ones we want, they breathe oxygen just like you and I do. The bad ones, the ones that make things go rotten and slimy and smell like something crawled in there and gave up. Those are the ones that thrive when there's no air. So you keep that pump running the whole time and you keep the brew on the right side of that line. Then you wait. 24 to 36 hours. Go do something else. Come back and give the bag a little squeeze and a swish now and again when you walk past, just to help wash the microbes out into the water, but mostly just leave it bubble. And when you think it's done, here's your test. Lean over the bucket and smell it. Go on. Put your nose right over it. It should smell rich and earthy and pleasant, like good soil after a rainfall. Almost sweet. If you lean in and it smells nice like that, you did it right. That brew is ready and your plants are going to love it. But if you lean in and pull your head back quick, because it smells like a swamp, like rotten eggs, like something you really don't want near your vegetables, then something went wrong. Usually not enough air. Don't put that on your plants. Dump it on the gravel driveway, rinse the bucket, and start fresh. The nose knows. That is the only quality control instrument you need for this whole operation. The mistakes that'll ruin your brew. Before it starts now, there are 4 mistakes I see folks make the first time out, and every one of them is easy to dodge if you know they're coming. First one, and the biggest by a long way, skipping the air pump. Figuring you'll just stir it with a stick every hour or so. You won't. And even if you did, it wouldn't be enough. Without that constant bubbling, the brew goes rotten on you and all you've made is a bucket of stink. Get the pump. $10, worth every cent. Second mistake, brewing a beautiful batch and then getting busy and not using it until 3 or 4 days later. By then, the microbes are gone. Dead in a bucket. Once you shut that pump off, the clock starts ticking. You've got a few hours maybe before the biology starts dying off. Make it. Use it the same day, or don't bother making it. The timing part is not negotiable. Third mistake, pouring that fresh brew straight down onto hot, bone-dry, dusty soil in the middle of a July afternoon. Them little microbes hit that dry baked ground and they just shrivel right up before they ever get a chance to do a thing. Give your beds a good drink of plain water first, get the soil nice and moist, and then put the brew down on top of that. The microbes will settle in and get to work. Fourth mistake, the molasses. Already covered it, but it bears repeating. Easy does it. 1 tablespoon, maybe 2. Not a quarter of the jar. Less is more, and more is a swamp. How and when to use it. All right, so you've got a bucket of beautiful, earthy-smelling living brew. Now what? There are 2 ways to use it, and they do different jobs. The first way, and the most important one, is a soil drench. You pull the mesh bag out, let it drain back into the bucket, and then you take that liquid and you pour it right at the base of your plants, soaking the soil all around the roots. A good full watering can around each plant. What you're doing is sending that whole army of microbes right down into the root zone, right where all the action happens, right where your plants are actually going to benefit from them. The second way is a foliar spray. You strain the brew through something fine, a piece of cheesecloth works, or just the mesh bag held up over a separate bucket, until there are no chunks left that would clog a sprayer. Then you pour it into a pump sprayer and mist it onto the leaves. Top and bottom of the leaves both. And you do this in the morning, early, when it's cool, and before the sun gets up any real heat. The microbes sit right there on the leaf surface and crowd out the fungal diseases that would love to get a foothold there. It's a little like sending your own security team to stand guard on the leaves. And it works. Just mornings for the foliar spray. Every time. You spray leaves in the heat of the afternoon and you'll scorch them. Mornings. I'll say it as many times as it takes. How often? Every 2 weeks through the main growing season is about right. Spring through summer, when your plants are really pushing growth and doing their best work. Ease off in the fall when things start winding down and the garden's heading into its rest. Your heavy feeders love this most. Tomatoes, peppers, squash, cucumbers. They respond the fastest and the strongest. But honestly, just about everything in the garden will take to it. Leafy greens, flowers, your roses, the potted plants sitting on the porch looking a little sorry for themselves. All of them. What happened? When Michael switched. So, remember Michael? The fella who'd been on the fertilizer treadmill since 1980 and spending $200 a summer? Michael built himself a simple little compost pile. Worms showed up in it within about 3 weeks, which, honestly, I always find a little bit magical no matter how many times I see it. He started brewing his first batch the following spring. Used rainwater from the barrel he'd set up the fall before. Did the soil drench on his tomato beds and his pepper patch and then just watched. By midsummer, the leaves were a darker green than he'd ever seen on those plants. Not the flash-in-the-pan quick green you get from a bag of synthetic granules, but a deep, steady, healthy green that stuck around. The tomatoes set fruit heavier than the year before. The pepper stood up strong through a real nasty stretch of heat in August that had his neighbor's plants looking absolutely wrung out. The thing that surprised Michael most, though, and I think it'll surprise you too, was the flavor. He bit into the first ripe tomato of the season, and he just stood there in the garden for a minute. You know that moment. When a tomato actually tastes like a tomato's supposed to taste, not like the pale, watery things at the grocery store, but like something that actually earned its spot on a plate. He said it was the best tomato he'd grown in 40 years of trying. Now, I'll be straight with you here, because I think you deserve that. The brew isn't magic. It is not going to rescue plants that are sitting in terrible soil with no organic matter and no care. What it does is it wakes up and supercharges what's already there. If your soil has nothing to work with, you've got to build it up first. Add compost, add organic matter, stop reaching for the chemical shortcut. The brew is like yeast in bread dough. The flour has got to already be there. The yeast just brings the whole thing to life. You feed the soil, and then the brew makes that soil sing. Hey, real quick before we keep going. If this is clicking for you and you want more of this kind of plain talk, what actually works garden advice? Do me a favor and tap that subscribe button down there. I put this kind of stuff out every single week, and I'd love to have you around for it. Anyway, back to the numbers, because this part is satisfying. The real cost breakdown. Let's just do the math real quick, because I think it's worth sitting with for a moment. A decent bag of fertilizer at the garden center right now is running somewhere between $15 and $25, depending on what you're buying. Michael was going through 3 or 4 of those a season on the vegetable beds alone, plus the liquid feed, plus the specialty stuff. Call it $150 to $200 a year. Every year. For 40 years. You do that arithmetic if you want. I did, and it made me need to sit down. Now here's the brew. The compost. Free. Made from kitchen scraps and yard waste that you were throwing away anyway. The worm castings, if you need to buy a bag to start, a few dollars and it lasts you the whole season. The molasses, pennies a batch. The water, free from the rain barrel. The aquarium air pump, $10, maybe $12, bought once, runs for years. That is your entire supply list. So after that one $10 pump, you are feeding your whole garden all season for just about nothing. Not almost nothing. Nothing. While the fertilizer companies are out there printing new labels and coming up with new reasons for you to buy the next product on the shelf. I'm not saying those companies are villains. I'm just saying they've got a business to run. And a gardener who makes their own living soil biology for free isn't a very good customer. Make of that what you will. All right. Let's run back through the whole thing one more time, because I know that was a lot to hold in your head at once. Your plants are fed by the living biology in your soil, not by the bag. Start with finished compost, the dark, earthy, sweet-smelling stuff from the bottom of the pile. Or grab a bag of worm castings if you're starting from scratch. Use water with no chlorine, either overnight tap water or rainwater from a barrel. Add 1 tablespoon of unsulfured molasses to feed the microbes and get them multiplying. Drop in your air stone, run the pump, and brew it for 24 to 36 hours. Smell it before you use it. Good smell means go. Bad smell means start over. Use it fresh the same day you finish brewing. Drench the soil around your plant roots, or strain it and mist the leaves first thing in the morning. Do it every couple of weeks through the growing season. And underneath it all, keep feeding your soil with compost and organic matter so the biology has something rich to work with. That is the whole thing. A bucket, some water, a scoop of compost, a spoon of molasses, and a little $10 air pump. And in return, you get healthier plants, better harvests, richer soil that improves every single year, and a garden that stops costing you money to maintain and starts paying you back in tomatoes that taste like they mean it. Michael hasn't bought a bag of fertilizer in 3 years now. His soil is darker and softer than it's ever been. His harvests are up. His costs are down. And every spring when his neighbor hauls out the cart full of fertilizer bags at the garden center, Michael just nods politely and keeps walking. Go on and get yourself a bucket. Make your first batch this weekend. Your soil's been waiting on this for a long time, even if you didn't know it yet. Take care now, and I'll see you next time.